Thinking of traveling to the Philippines? Amazing beaches, incredible food, warm people. But here's the thing. If you do even one of these common tourist mistakes, locals might secretly roll their eyes at you. Or worse, avoid you altogether. In this video, I'll show you the 10 things tourists do in the Philippines that locals secretly hate. Avoid these, and you'll blend in, make real connections, and have a way better trip than the average visitor. And trust me, number 7 is something almost every first-time tourist does without even realizing it, and it instantly screams foreigner. Stick around so you don't get caught making the same mistake. 1. Treating the Philippines like just another cheap destination. Many tourists come to the Philippines expecting it to be extremely cheap compared to other countries. While some things may be less expensive than in Western countries, the Philippines is not necessarily the cheapest destination in Southeast Asia and often offers poor quality for low prices. This expectation can lead to undervaluing what the country and its people have to offer, which locals dislike. Tourists who treat the Philippines as just a cheap, no-frills vacation often display bad manners, disrespect local customs, and contribute to problems such as pollution, overcrowding, and inappropriate public behavior. For example, in places like La Union and Boracay, locals have expressed frustration over tourists littering, being loud, disrespectful, and turning quiet areas into wild party spots. These behaviors degrade the natural environment and disrupt local life, which locals secretly resent. Tourist hotspots often lose their authentic Filipino culture because they adapt too much for foreign visitors. For instance, Boracay has been criticized for being over-commercialized, with tourist traps that don't reflect true Filipino culture, which disappoints both visitors seeking authenticity and locals who feel their culture is being exploited or ignored. Some locals feel burdened by tourists' expectations and behaviors. They may accommodate tourists to earn a living, but the influx of tourists can drive up prices in local markets, making daily life more expensive for residents. Additionally, locals sometimes feel hurt that the Philippines has fallen behind other Southeast Asian countries economically and developmentally, yet tourists still expect Western-level conveniences and low costs. Although Filipinos are known for their hospitality, there is often a quiet resentment because the country is treated like a cheap playground rather than a rich and diverse culture. This contradiction between hospitality and resentment stems from a desire to be respected and appreciated beyond being just a bargain destination or a party spot. Locals secretly dislike when tourists treat the Philippines merely as a cheap vacation spot because it leads to disrespectful behavior, cultural loss, environmental damage, and economic pressures. They wish tourists would approach the country with more respect, appreciation for its culture, and awareness of their impact on local communities. Many tourists come for the low prices and forget there's more to the Philippines than budget travel. Locals don't like being treated like their culture is just a bargain vacation package. 2. Ignoring local customs and etiquette. Tourists in the Philippines often irritate locals by ignoring important local customs and etiquette. Some of the key behaviors locals secretly hate include not removing shoes before entering homes. In Filipino households, removing shoes is a sign of respect and cleanliness. Ignoring this is seen as disrespectful. Wearing inappropriate clothes at religious and cultural sites. Dressing immodestly, such as shorts in temples or bikinis in conservative areas, offends local sensibilities. Taking photos of locals without permission. Treating locals as mere photo props, especially children or people in traditional attire, is invasive and disrespectful. Littering and disrespecting nature. Leaving trash on beaches and protected sites damages natural beauty that locals cherish. Being loud, obnoxious, and disruptive. Shouting noisily in public places or behaving drunkenly, especially in quiet or spiritual areas, is frowned upon. Ignoring local rules and signs. Disregarding posted signs about protected areas, no flash photography, or safety can harm cultural heritage or the environment. Aggressive haggling and rude treatment of locals. Over-bargaining and treating vendors or workers disrespectfully creates tension. Disrespecting local food and culture. Complaining about local cuisine or refusing to adapt to slower service upsets locals. Treating destinations like party zones. Excessive drinking and rowdy parties in peaceful neighborhoods cause animosity. In beach resort areas like La Union and Boracay, Locals express frustration about tourists trashing the environment, engaging in lewd behavior in public, and transforming peaceful towns into party hubs. Some tourists openly criticize local beaches or culture, which locals find insulting given the impact tourism has on the community and economy. Overall, locals value tourists who respect customs, dress appropriately, keep noise levels down, treat people politely, follow rules, and appreciate Filipino culture without turning their visit into a disruptive party or photo opportunity. Ignoring these customs leads to resentment and a tarnished experience for both visitors and residents alike. From not saying po and opo, which are signs of respect, to skipping a smile when you interact, small things matter here. A little respect goes a long way. 3. Over-tipping or under-tipping. Yes, tipping isn't mandatory, but if you leave nothing in restaurants, it feels stingy. On the other hand, dropping big tips like in the US can feel show-offy. Balance is key. Tipping in the Philippines is generally optional and not a deeply ingrained cultural practice. Many locals do not expect tips, and leaving no tip is usually not seen as rude. Tourists who either tip excessively or fail to tip can inadvertently cause discomfort or resentment among locals because they misunderstand the local norms. Over-tipping can be perceived as a form of superiority or self-gratification by tourists, which some locals find off-putting or even insulting. For example, giving a small tip like 20 pesos may be seen as stingy, but very large tips can also be viewed as showing off and can create awkwardness. Under-tipping or not tipping when one should, such as when good service is provided in tourist areas, might also be taken the wrong way since some service workers rely on tips. But generally, tipping is optional and people understand if you do not tip. Cash is the preferred method of tipping, and smaller bills help avoid awkward situations. Some tourist areas have more common tipping practices with guidelines around 10% of the bill if no service charge is included, but this is not a strict rule. Tourists who do not adapt to these local tipping customs risk being seen as culturally unaware or disrespectful, which can lead to hidden resentment from locals who value hospitality but dislike outsiders who appear arrogant or inconsiderate. In summary, tipping in the Philippines involves a delicate balance. Being unaware and tipping too much or too little can annoy locals who appreciate cultural respect and proper conduct around tipping, rather than exaggerated generosity or neglect. 4. Dressing inappropriately in religious sites. The Philippines is a deeply religious country with strong Christian, Muslim, and indigenous communities. Religious sites are considered sacred, and local customs emphasize modesty and respect. Dressing in revealing or inappropriate clothing is seen as disrespectful to the beliefs and practices upheld in these spaces. Visitors to Catholic churches are expected to dress modestly, covering shoulders and avoiding shorts or revealing tops. For Muslim and indigenous religious sites, modest clothing and sometimes head coverings are required. Ignoring these expectations can offend local worshippers who hold these customs dearly. Locals feel embarrassed and offended when tourists show too much skin or wear clothes that are too casual or beach-like in sacred spaces. For example, tourists wearing bikinis or beachwear in churches or sacred sites have been fined and publicly criticized because these outfits violate traditional Filipino values of decorum and modesty. Locals believe that visitors should respect their culture's proper decorum, including dress codes, to honor the sanctity of religious sites. Disregarding this shows ignorance and insensitivity to Filipino traditions and cultural values. When tourists dress inappropriately, it can harm the image of respectful tourism and cause discomfort among locals who wish to uphold their heritage. This behavior sometimes leads to negative social media exposure and public warnings by local authorities. Dressing modestly and appropriately in religious sites in the Philippines is crucial because it shows respect for the local culture, religious beliefs, and community values. Tourists who ignore this are often secretly disliked by locals because their behavior disrupts the sanctity and respectfulness expected in these sacred places. The Philippines is majority Catholic. Walking into churches or religious festivals in swimwear or revealing outfits, that's a definite no-go. 5. Complaining about the heat all the time. The Philippines experiences very high temperatures, often exacerbated by high humidity, making the heat feel much worse than the actual temperature. Heat indices can soar, reaching values over 60 degrees Celsius in some areas during recent years, creating dangerous conditions with heat stress and heat-related illnesses being common. Locals, having lived in this climate for a long time, are accustomed to the heat, although recent years have seen unusually intense and extended heat waves that even they suffer from. Despite this, tourists often complain excessively because their bodies are not acclimated, and the experience of heat combined with humidity is particularly discomforting to newcomers. Complaints from tourists about the heat can be viewed by locals as an annoyance or a lack of appreciation for the daily realities residents face and endure year-round. This can lead to locals feeling a sense of frustration or resentment when tourists constantly voice discomfort about something that is a normal part of life for them. Additionally, tourists' complaints often ignore the adaptive strategies locals have and sometimes come with demands or behaviors that strain local resources and infrastructure, compounding the negative perception. The heat is more than just a discomfort. It impacts everyday activities such as attending school and working. Schools have even canceled face-to-face classes during extreme heat periods due to the severity of conditions, highlighting how heat severely affects locals as well. In summary, tourists frequently complaining about the heat in the Philippines reflects their unfamiliarity and discomfort with the tropical climate, which locals, while also suffering, quietly endure as part of their normal environment. The contrast between tourists' vocal complaints and locals' quiet endurance can lead to locals disliking that aspect of tourist behavior, as it shows a lack of understanding or empathy for the local experience. We get it, it's hot. Locals deal with it daily. Constantly pointing it out makes you sound unprepared. 6. Only visiting Boracay or Palawan. Both Boracay and Palawan are spectacular natural paradises, but they suffer from severe overcrowding, especially Boracay. Boracay notably had to be closed for several months in 2018 due to environmental degradation caused by sewage buildup and over-tourism. The influx of tourists leads to trash, damaged coral reefs, and an overall strain on the island's natural resources. This environmental destruction diminishes the beauty and sustainability of the place, frustrating locals who see their homeland harmed by mass tourism. These popular tourist spots have become heavily commercialized to cater to tourists, often at the expense of authentic Filipino culture. Many tourists encounter westernized food, international brands like McDonald's and Starbucks, and party atmospheres that mask the real Filipino experience. Locals feel marginalized as the tourism industry is built around what attracts tourists rather than preserving local traditions and livelihoods. In Boracay especially, tourists are often aggressively approached by vendors selling souvenirs, boat rides, massages, or other services. This constant pressure can be exhausting and creates a less relaxing experience. Locals involved in these activities may come off as intrusive, which tourists dislike, and locals themselves resent being pushed into this kind of commerce. Both islands attract a party crowd, with loud music, drunken tourists, and sometimes disrespectful behavior. This disturbs the peace and sometimes leads to locals feeling exploited or disrespected. It also overshadows the natural beauty and cultural richness that the Philippines offers. Locals secretly dislike that many tourists only opt for Boracay or Palawan and do not explore other less commercialized, more authentic and beautiful islands in the Philippines. This results in unbalanced economic benefits and overlooks the cultural and environmental diversity of the country. Some travelers find better experiences in lesser-known islands where local communities are more welcoming and less burdened by mass tourism. Locals dislike the limited tourist focus on Boracay and Palawan due to environmental harm, commercialization, loss of authenticity, vendor pressure, party-driven disruptions, and missed opportunities to showcase the rest of the Philippines' rich islands and cultures. Many wish visitors would explore beyond these hotspots to discover more genuine, respectful, and sustainable travel experiences in the country. Sure, they're stunning, but acting like the Philippines only has 2 islands? Locals hate when tourists ignore the other 600-plus beautiful spots. 7. Speaking loudly in public. Here it is, the big one I mentioned earlier. Tourists often talk way louder than locals in restaurants, malls, or buses. It instantly gives away that you're not from around here and can annoy people around you. Filipinos culturally have a fear of silence or evacuee. and tend to be loud and expressive as a way to fill empty spaces. But this is balanced by an understanding of appropriate volume and respect in certain public contexts. Tourists speaking loudly often ignore these local social cues, which can be perceived as disrespectful or disruptive. Locals generally prefer calm and respectful noise levels in shared public spaces like public transport, restaurants, and residential areas. Loud speaking by tourists can disturb others, showing a lack of consideration for the local environment and people trying to rest or have quiet moments. The loud behavior of some tourists, combined with other issues like public drunkenness, lewdness, and disregard for local customs, contributes to a negative impression and frustration among locals who feel their communities are being disrespected or overwhelmed by tourism. Some locals have noted that the influx of tourists who are loud and unruly has changed the atmosphere in once peaceful areas, leading to discomfort and secret resentments even if not openly expressed. Overall, speaking loudly in public by tourists is seen as a sign of not respecting Filipino cultural norms around noise and public decorum, which locals secretly dislike even if they may not always say it directly. 8. Refusing to try local food. Filipino culture strongly values hospitality, and it is customary to prepare and offer food to visitors. Refusing the food prepared by hosts is considered rude and hurts the feelings of the owners. Filipinos expect guests to at least try the food, as it is part of welcoming and treating visitors well. Refusal can result in offending the hosts and possibly never being invited again. Locals feel frustrated when tourists refuse to embrace the local experience, including cuisine. Complaining about or rejecting local dishes in favor of demanding Western or familiar foods shows a lack of respect and appreciation for the culture. It signals that tourists are not open to new experiences, which locals dislike. Filipino food may have flavors or ingredients unfamiliar to tourists, which can lead to reluctance or avoidance. Despite this, locals favor sharing their traditional dishes such as lechon, dinuguan, kare-kare, and others as part of their identity and hospitality. Rejection of such food can feel like a rejection of their culture itself. Some tourists prefer westernized or fast food, partly due to global influences and familiarity. This contributes to skewing perceptions that Filipino food is unappealing when actually authentic Filipino dishes are beloved by locals and represent their heritage. Locals would rather tourists try and appreciate genuine local foods than avoid them. In summary, Filipino locals secretly dislike it when tourists refuse to try local food because food sharing is an essential part of Filipino hospitality and culture. Refusing food is seen as rude, unappreciative, and harmful to the relationship between locals and visitors. Embracing local cuisine is viewed as a sign of respect and a way to genuinely experience the Philippines. Sticking to fast food chains like McDonald's or only eating pizza, locals take pride in their cuisine. You don't have to love everything, but at least try it. 9. Not learning even basic Filipino words. Simple greetings like salamat, thank you, or magandang umaga, good morning, instantly make locals smile. Ignoring the language completely? Not so much. The Philippines has over 180 dialects spread across thousands of islands. And though English is widely spoken, which many tourists rely on, a basic attempt at the Filipino language, often Tagalog, is considered polite and endearing by locals. Tourists who don't try to learn basic Filipino words and rely solely on English can give the impression that they see little value in local culture or are entitled, expecting locals to cater to their comfort without reciprocating any effort. Language learning resources for Filipino dialects are relatively scarce compared to popular world languages, but efforts to learn Tagalog or common phrases are still highly appreciated. Beyond language, locals also dislike tourists who disrespect cultural norms, act entitled, or leave negative footprints, such as disrespecting environment, locals, or behaving inappropriately, which compounds frustration with tourists who don't even learn basic words. Attempts to learn local words can also help avoid misunderstandings and unfair treatment, as it shows tourists goodwill, and using the language often discourages locals from charging foreigners higher prices. In short, locals secretly dislike tourists not learning basic Filipino words because it reflects a lack of respect and effort to bridge cultural gaps, which can hurt the overall experience and relationship between tourists and locals. Even small gestures like greeting or thanking in Filipino can go a long way in building goodwill and positive interactions during visits to the Philippines. 10. Assuming everyone speaks English. Yes, English is widely spoken, but assuming every local should cater to you in English can come off as arrogant. Making even a small effort in Filipino shows respect. Filipinos appreciate when visitors make an effort to use local languages or at least greet people in Filipino or regional dialects before switching to English. Assuming English universally can come across as lazy or disrespectful because it ignores the local culture and linguistic diversity. Among Filipinos, English proficiency is sometimes linked with class and education. Some locals mock others for speaking English poorly, associating it with trying to appear elite or fancy. Tourists assuming everyone speaks English might unintentionally reinforce this social tension or expose locals to ridicule. Asking in English without showing effort in the local language may feel like imposing. Filipinos tend to value humility and effort in communication over mere proficiency. Making no attempt to connect in the native tongue can make tourists appear arrogant or insensitive. In sum, tourists assuming everyone speaks English in the Philippines risks alienating locals by overlooking language barriers, social nuances, and the cultural importance of language effort. A respectful approach is to try basic Filipino or local greetings first and politely ask if English is understood, showing humility and cultural appreciation, which locals secretly value but rarely express openly. So, remember number 7, speaking loudly in public. That's the dead giveaway. If you keep your voice down, smile, and show respect, you'll fit in much better than the average tourist. But here's the thing, avoiding these mistakes is only half the story. Want to know what actually makes Filipinos love tourists instantly? That's exactly what I'll cover in my next video. So if you want to travel smarter, avoid tourist traps, and connect with locals, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the bell. You won't want to miss it.